In the Revolutionary War, an attack could be planned perfectly. Right people, right weapons, right tactics. But on the day of battle, it could all fall apart, just because the weather changed. Soldiers were vulnerable to the elements. On marches, they were constantly exposed, soaked by rain, frozen by cold, scorched by the sun. Most uniforms were made of wool and leather, which started to rot and fall apart when soldiers had no way of getting dry. Weaponry was vulnerable to rain too. Black powder would not ignite if it got wet, making muskets and cannons useless. In the Battle of the Clouds, George Washington called off an attack because of rain, just like a sports match. At times, changeable weather impacted the course of the war itself. In 1776, the Patriots had the British surrounded in Boston and were setting up artillery positions on the high ground of Dorchester Heights. Redcoats were all ready to move across the harbor and attack the half-built fortifications. But when a sudden storm swept in, the British attack couldn't be launched. And by the time the weather cleared, the Patriot fortifications were finished. The result? A humiliating British retreat from Boston. Heat and cold could be just as deadly as the enemy. At the Battle of Monmouth, soldiers were fighting in 100-degree heat, wearing woolen shirts and tunics, most likely carrying heavy packs, suffering in the heat and smoke of heavy gunfire. So it's not surprising that more Patriots died from heat stroke than bullet wounds. In the intense cold of North American winters, soldiers didn't usually fight, instead settling into winter camps until spring. But it wasn't much of a break. Continental troops got so desperate during the terrible winter of 1780 that officers had to put down a mutiny at the Morristown camp. Of all the military forces, none were so aware of the power of the weather as the navies. Even the mightiest battleship was vulnerable to severe storms, as the Royal Navy found out when it lost several ships to a Caribbean hurricane in 1780. And earlier that year, a British transport ship was hit by a storm so violent that it broke all of the cavalry horses' legs. During the Revolutionary War, weather turned plans upside down, flipped the fortunes of war, and made a lot of people and animals miserable.